Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 94. I have on here Adam Dubove, and we're going to talk about Javier Milei again. He's a journalist and a libertarian activist, and he's written for Infobay, Pan Am Post, and a few others. He also has previously run for office with the Libertarian Party for the local Congress. So this is the first time we've had somebody who's actually run for office before. So this should be an interesting perspective. How are you, Adam?
Hi, Chris. How are you? It's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on here. First of all, how did you get into libertarianism?
Well, it was back in 2001 when there were the 9/11 attacks. That sparked my interest in politics, international politics. I was like 12 years old, and I saw those two airplanes smashing into towers, and I said, what's going on here? So I started looking into that. And always from that point, my perspective on the world has been quite contrarian. Intuitively, like if everyone's thinking the same, someone's not thinking. That was my thought process. And it was in 2006 that I found in my grandfather's library some Austrian economics books. So sorry?
Who?
In my grandfather's library.
Yeah.
He had some books by Friedrich Hayek, Henry Hazlitt, and other Austrian authors.
Okay.
And that's how I discovered this worldview that matched my initial intuitions about the world. So then when I turned 18 years old, I found in Facebook that there was a group of people wanting to start a libertarian party in Argentina. And that's how I got into politics. If you want, now we can go deeper on that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've never heard of anybody getting politically inspired to getting by the World Trade Center. There was a big terrorist attack in Argentina back in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah, actually, there were two terrorist attacks. One against the Israel embassy, and the other one against a Jewish community center.
Interesting. Yeah. You really don't see that happening very much in South America in general. It's I think it's largely because the South American countries really aren't sticking their nose into other people's businesses, so nobody really feels the need to stick their nose into theirs. But anyway, so you've been a journalist for the Pan Am Post and some other. I know of Infobay. I don't know if that's necessarily a libertarian publication, but I'm certainly aware of them. So you also have some experience running for office. What was that like?
Well, our main motivation in running for office and starting this small political party in the city of Buenos Aires was mainly spreading ideas. There was no really will of taking power or expectations of getting real political power. But we saw the political party as a vehicle in order to reach more people and to be invited to the TV shows and start to spread the libertarian ideas in order to move the axis of the debate. So we can Argentina after 2001, the 2001 crisis, shifted to the left all the political discourse, all the political discussion. So we wanted to provide an alternative vision, which was not right-wing, because we didn't consider ourselves right-wing, but libertarian. And we tried to expose people to this view. So it was very, very fun. For 5 years that were really fun because we did a lot of activism. We when the first currency restrictions, exchange restrictions started here back in 2011, we went to the main street in downtown and start selling US dollars illegally, but in a symbolic way. We closed down the tax collecting agency symbolically as well. So we did a lot of stuff that were geared in order to gain media traction and to spread another perspective in the political debate.
Yes. So you started your own libertarian party. It sounds like to me there's much more of a system down there of multiple parties, and people just start their own parties, and you have all these little parties instead of big parties. What can you tell me about that?
Well, there are two big main parties, which is the historically, which is the Peronismo, and which is a statist, right and left wing statist party, and the Radicales, so the UCR, which is more of a social democratic slash socialist non-Marxist party. And in the later years, the Social Democratic Party joined forces with a more center-right conservative party, which is now the one of the opposition coalitions that are taking part in the election. And according to the constitution, you can only take part in politics by starting your own party. So it's not like, for example, in the states that probably there are independent candidates which don't have any party supporting them. Well, that doesn't exist here in Argentina, and it's really hard in order to create a party. There is a lot of requirements, a lot of you need to collect signatures, but it's all similar to the ballot access stuff that the Libertarian Party has there in the states. So in the middle of the creation of the party, all the regulations about creating parties changed, and that really made things harder for us in order to continue our work in the party. So the system is designed in a way that there is two main parties, and there is then a lower class of parties, maybe 10, 12 parties that are owned by people. So or owning a political party is a business here because of such a high barriers to participate. You have you if you overcome them, then you get a really good asset because you can rent it every election to different candidates. So, for example, Javier Milei doesn't have a structure, he doesn't have a party, and in some districts he kind of rented the party with a political agreement, which is understandable. I mean, it's not the most ethical thing you can do, but it's understandable if you want to take part in politics in Argentina. And in last week, there was a deadline in order to fill the candidates for the Congress for the elections in October, and it seems that this party betrayed Milei and it didn't fill the papers or didn't present the papers to meet this deadline, and now he lost all the Congress candidates in that province.
Yes. So these parties come and go. It sounds like too. So do you think it's not very easy to start one in your opinion, but a lot of them do get started?
Yes, I mean there is like if you did it 10, 15 years ago when it was easier, then you have
Yeah.
now now it's scarcer. There are scarcer political parties, so they switch ideologies from one election to other. So it's merely a structure that is for rent.
Did you say they're scarcer? You said, or
I mean they are scarce, and they are more scarce now than they were before when it was easier to create new parties.
oh, scars as in cuts?
There are a few parties.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have this system in Argentina that there's the Avanza Libertad, and then there's La, which is the party, and then there's La Libertad Avanza, which is the coalition. What can you tell me about the party Avanza Libertad, which I believe means advance liberty or advance freedom?
Yeah, so actually those parties are two different parties. One party is the party that was created by another classical liberal economist, a bit less radical than Milei, called Jose Luis Espert. He
Yes,
created
that's
this.
correct. Yes.
Yes, he created that party back in 2019, and I think at the beginnings, Milei was taking part in that party, and then they make ways separate ways. Um, So this party has now been engulfed by the main conservative coalition called Juntos por el Cambio. So José Luis Espert has adopted the mainstream conservative center right wing speech, and he left his libertarian values aside. At least that's what I can see from his tweets and his TV interviews. And on the other hand, we have La Libertad Avanza, which is a coalition made of, I think it's about 10 or 12 parties that support Javier Milei as president. But Javier Milei by himself, he doesn't have a structure that is of his own. He has external support from different, more conservative, more liberal parties that have been existing for 100 years or 50 years, but they only got any amount of power by going through these kind of coalitions.
Yeah, through these coalitions. Yeah, you have to. And you said Espert is with another coalition now?
Yes, so he moved to the, as you would say, like a traditional center-right coalitions that almost every country has. He has removed the more radical elements of his speech, like he was pro-dollarization, and now then he shifted to launching a new currency called the peso libre, the free peso, and now he has changed again, and now he's the bi-monetarization proposed by this his coalition candidate.
Yep.
And but if you see at Javier Milei's lists in the provinces, because we vote for president and then we renew a part of the Congress as well. And all these lists, they are not filled by really libertarian activists, but there is a lot of negotiation going on there because you need such a large amount of candidates, which is not ideal. I'd rather see a fully libertarian Congress, but if that's what the cost of having a libertarian president, I'm willing to assume that cost.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be a good cost. So Milei is now, got 30% of the vote in the primary election, and he now needs to get 45% of the vote in this next election to become president, or 40% and beat everybody by at least 10 else by at least 10%.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't happen, it goes to a third election with the top two candidates. It seems like it's kind of a mess, but that's how it goes. So, so it sounds like Milei has a good chance of becoming president at this point. I mean, he definitely is the front runner, but
yes, everyone says here, every political analyst, pollsters, and that kind of stuff of political wonks say that Milei has like almost a safe space, a safe spot in the runoff if he doesn't reach the threshold in order to be elected. And there are new polls coming that are putting him close to the 40% with a 10% difference or a 8% difference, which might put him closer to winning in a first round. But everyone agrees that whether it's the ruling government or it's the traditional opposition that goes with Milei to the runoff, there are more chances. The odds are higher for Milei to win because the other party won't vote their traditional rivals.
yeah, so certainly. So and if Milei wins, do you think he'll have a legislative body that's favorable to him, or do you think they'll be very hostile to him? What will the legislature look like after this election if Milei wins?
Well, some political philosophers here in Argentina started saying that Milei doesn't even have a third of the members of Congress required to block an impeachment. So he might be threatened with impeachment. But in my opinion, I think that if Milei becomes president, a lot of politicians that are now aligned in the traditional conservative opposition, might shift their allegiance and start voting for Milei proposals that are aligned with their views. So I think in that sense, he will have more political power than what is expected. He's expected to win about 40 congressmen, but I think he might reach close to 100 out of 257 if there is a realignment in the political uh, scenario here,
Yeah,
because there is a win. Right, the traditional party, the traditional opposition party, has a more of a liberal, classical liberal wing, and then more of a social democratic wing. So they won't be they won't be able to coexist for much more.
yeah. And 40 people out of 257 was really a force that you can't ignore at that point. I mean, they're not a majority, but they can certainly influence a lot of things. And if he gets 100, that's even better.
Definitely, and Milei is becoming more. He's becoming more pragmatic as
Yeah,
he is incorporating some well-known political characters, such as his interior minister, who will have to
yeah,
negotiate with the provinces and with the governors.
yeah,
And this guy has experience in positions of power in the
yeah.
public sector.
Yeah, has Malay? So, it really depends a lot on the people you surround yourself with once you are president. I mean, in America, I think a lot of the presidents surrounded themselves with some really horrible people, and that was really their downfall. Uh, has Malay surrounded himself with some pretty good people? Do you think the people will secretly not be working for his agenda? Uh, I know there's Victoria Real and some others.
Well, I have a mixed feelings here, and one of my decisions to support Milei, like that I took, I was a bit skeptical before. Maybe 2 weeks before the election, I was a bit skeptical. But one decision that made me support Milei was to split his person of those who are around him or of those who support him, who may espouse very different and even sometimes opposing views. I think that in the surroundings of Milei, in the entourage of Milei, there are like two kind of people. On one side, there is more of a conservative wing with some nationalist inclinations and more of a social conservative view on things such as the drug war, abortion, um, issues such as freedom of like having the education schooling the school's content not defined by the state, and that kind of more that's the kind of stuff. It generates more rejection in this wing. um Villarruel is the leader, I would say, of this wing, and a lot of members of this wing are part and are going to be part of the Congress. And there is a more of an Austrian technical wing that uh, are the people that are in charge or in charge of designing the policies and in charge of that are going to be probably public officials at at an eventual Milei administration, that are comprised by really good professionals. Some of them are Austrian economics, some of the economists, some of them are come more of the Chicago school, but they are very knowledgeable. So these people are the one that are influencing right now in Milei's plans. So I am not that concerned, although I, as a libertarian, I would have liked seeing a real libertarian movement growing from this. But maybe his success was also explained by making the alliance that was meant to make in this political context.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. So you think Milei could accomplish a lot if he actually does get elected? Then it sounds like.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think that even if he does 30-40% of what he has promised, or if he starts
Yeah,
reforming a wide range of areas, not going as deep as he promised, but moving in that direction. I think that would be like change Argentina for forever, and particularly dollarization.
Yeah, definitely. When did you first notice Javier Milei?
Well, I have the honor to say now that I was one of the first people who have interviewed him back in 2015. Um, because his ascent started when our political party was gradually disappearing. So we met with Javier in some events, and we interviewed him in a radio show we used to have, but we didn't take part in his growth as a public figure. Um, he started as a, I mean, he was a neoclassical economist, very mathematical economist before um, becoming a libertarian. He was a really gray, boring economist filled with very mainstream ideas. But when he got exposed to Austrian economics, he radically switched his views, and I saw his transformation of how he became. He went from even considering his past heroes like econometrists and very mathematical economists, and and transforming and switching to speaking of Murray Rothbard or of Ludwig von Mises on TV shows, and but that was his first transition from neoclassical economics to Austrian economics and a libertarian worldview. And then he made a second transition that was this more to the social conservative paleo libertarian um, worldview, where he kind of starting to speak not as enthusiastically about ending the drug war or other issues that characterize paleo libertarians. But in a country where there is a 53% of poverty, I don't think that abstaining or opposing a candidate, a libertarian candidate, because of that, it seems like if I was an imbecile disconnected with reality.
So you think Milei's rejected socials or adopted socials conservatism? Where do you think he's changed on that?
Well, I think he adopted a more religious speech to appeal to this audience. Um, he also started to, well, meet with people who have very controversial and I would say wrong views on defending the mm, the dirty war in Argentina back in the 1976 to 1983, the military dictatorship, and some dark figures of the traditional nationalist right. Um, so he's surrounded with these kind of people, and he kind of absorbed some of the positions in social in making abortion, and not only the position but the importance he gives to the issue, because for him abortion is one and it's an important topic. He has said that he will propose a referendum for people to vote again about abortion should be legal or not. And I can see all that is an influence of his news yes, friends.
His new friends, you said?
Yes, his new friends of the traditional right, which have influenced his speech, but I don't think it has changed the essence of the libertarian speech in Javier
Well,
Milei.
well, it's the question, is Milei adopting those positions, or is he just trying to get them to get his support? I mean, every successful revolution has its own useful idiots. You have to, and I mean, this is a whereas libertarians have certainly served as useful idiots for the bad guys plenty of times. It would be interesting to see it go the other way and see the bad guys be the useful idiots for the libertarians. Uh,
Yeah, I hope so. But I think that's not like the main issue right now, because Argentina is just the Argentine economy is so on the brink of collapsing that all these issues become secondary right now.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think people are going to be concerned about the social issues. He's talking about economic issues, which are really affecting people a lot. And it sounds like to me a lot of people are already using the dollar or using Bitcoin anyway. So we're dealing with a de facto dollarization, even though it's not necessarily legal, a fully de jure or legal dollarization. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yes. From the person who works as a cleaning personnel to everyone who can save any amount of money every month, from $10 to $1,000 to whatever amount they can save, they will turn it into US dollars. No other way. I do it. I do it with Bitcoin. I buy Bitcoin whenever I can save some money. But most of Argentines will do it with US dollars, and everyone has their savings in US dollars. When they want to sell their property, they only will take US dollar bills in order to get paid for property, for real estate. If you want to sell an imported car, you will probably ask for dollars, and now people is asking for dollars in order to rent an apartment. Even 2 weeks ago, after the election, I have to hire a dog walker for my new dog, and I asked him for a price, and he told me, I want to give you a price, but right now, if I give you, I say 1,000 pesos for each day, then probably I'll have to tell you tomorrow or next week 1,200 pesos, because my cost, or I try to charge always $1 and a half per hour, and that's my reference. So everyone thinks in terms of US dollars here. And the only thing that has not been dollarized is the financial system, because at a personal level, at a micro level, everyone here is dollarized or using stable coins or using Bitcoin for saving.
Yeah, so it's definitely something happened with the economy. Are a lot of people just operating totally off the books, like in a cash or Bitcoin or in a cash or crypto society? They're not really reporting anything, and they're not really, maybe nothing's getting taxed. Is that how a lot of people are living down there now, or maybe you don't want to go into that?
So historically, and at this point as well, there is like a 50% of tax evasion in the economy,
Yeah,
around that number. But in the last years, something interesting started to happen, is that a lot of people working mainly in the IT service, but also in the graphic design service, providing digital services, started working for foreign companies, and they get paid in US dollars. So they may get a salary of 2, 3, 4,000 US dollars, which here in Argentina, 4,000 US dollars is a great salary if you're a single person. And they would get their money through these cuevas that I'm sure that someone already mentioned in the previous podcast about Milei and Argentina. These
yeah,
little financial services agencies, which are really illegal, and that they will allow you to exchange rate and to exchange money and to bring money from overseas and send money overseas. So there is a whole bunch of the economy that is working for foreign companies from Argentina, getting paid in dollars and going through all these black market circuit. So this is why there was a government talking point that the statistics were not reflecting all the thriving economy the thriving that was going on in this part of the economy, and that's why they were being criticized unfairly.
yeah. Certainly, it sounds very interesting. What do you think is you've run for office. What kind of reaction did you get back then? And I mean, what's changed for the voters? I mean, they didn't suddenly start taking smart pills or something, right? I mean, but now they're suddenly embracing. And usually when there's a crisis, voters get dumber; they don't get smarter. So what do you think's happened here? Do you think, and do you think this will keep going afterwards? I mean, because it's got to be more than one election. It's going to take at least 10 years to probably clean up some of the messes here.
Well, we mistimed our participation in politics. 2011, 2013 was the peak of socialist and interventionist the interventionist measures that the government was taking. The price of the commodities were really high, so the government was collecting a lot of tax money from the agricultural sector. So the government was pretty popular, and we only got 6,000 votes out of, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 million votes. So almost non-existent at that point. People would see us as a curiosity. It would relate us with previous experiences of liberalization that didn't end up well because didn't went. Uh, they were they were partially stopped, and they were suddenly stopped, and they didn't continue to make the reforms. So there was not really a lot of interest in libertarian ideas in the middle of that context. And but 5 6 years later, the economy is 5 times worse. Inflation is 3 times what it was, or 5 times what it was back then. The economy has deteriorated a lot in these 5 or 6 years. And Javier Milei's speech in TV has uh, has been received by the people, because people have seen that their last 80 years or 12 years have been governed by the two main political parties, and they didn't and every single administration, it was worse than the previous one. So they got it comes at what point that people gets tired of it, they want to try something new. So I don't think that now the statue the cultural to be a rebel now in Argentina is to oppose status quo, and status quo is not right now to be a statist, to be and to be idolizing the government. So being a rebel right now means opposing big government, and empowering the individual, and taking the boot out of the individual. And all these people that have been promised by governments, to they will have the right to healthcare, the right to education, the right to Wi-Fi, the right to menstrual pads, the right to everything, because the main the essence, or the main tenet of Peronism is, when there is a necessity, there is a right. So they've been promised all these kind of things, and they got nothing, because they get access to a terrible health services. They don't the kids don't have any classes at public schools, because teachers are at strike, or the buildings are they're being in a terrible state. So all these guys, and all these guys have looked into and gone into using Uber, using different kind of apps for working, and for making ends meet, and by themselves, without the assistance of government. So all this generation has started to see that, as Milei says, that if we keep on doing the same, then we'll get the same
Yeah.
results.
So
So I think it's been 10, 20 years of interventionist statist policies that fortunately ended up in this process, and not in a process like what happened in Venezuela, or what happened in Nicaragua, or what happened in Cuba. I don't know what will happen after Javier Milei. I think there is going to be, if he is a president, well, he has to try to stop inflation in order to have time to make the other reforms, and to be reelected, so he can uh, move forward with his plans. But even if he fails in this election, I don't think that Milei will continue his political career. But I think that he left, and he changed politics, Argentine politics. I don't know if for forever, or but for a long time.
so what it sounds like to me is that there's maybe been a change in which the voters no longer want the government to be their mommy and daddy anymore, and they actually want to stand up and live like adults and be their own boss in life? Or
Yeah, absolutely. They fail to be their mommy and daddy, so they now want to be self-made. Um, yes, I think people has like there's a segment of population that see that their neighbor get all the government benefits, government checks.
yeah,
They even get free land to build a home, and they get nothing, and they have to work by themselves. So they got tired of it, because it was like kind of an identitarian vote, because if you were low class, if you were poor or working class, you have to vote Peronismo. And now it seems that it has changed now, that because if you look at Milei's vote, historically libertarianism or classical liberalism was associated here in Argentina with a high class, with very wealthy people, and in 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 such way it was when we started the political party back in 2013. We were mostly young people, but the people who attended the events, the people who were classical liberals before us, they were all 70-year-old plus people, and people that live all in the wealthy area of Buenos Aires. And if you look at Milei's vote, Milei has been voted by people of all ages, of all social levels, of all, whether it's in the city or it's in the outskirts of the city or it's in the rural areas. He won everywhere. So he has reached all across the society. He's not focused in one sector that has been traditional associated with the traditional position or with classical liberalism, and that's really what is really surprising and moving about what happened in the primaries.
yeah, it definitely sounds like this is a good thing. And maybe there can be a type of, a national re-education taking place. Uh, another thing too that I think is a good possibility is that, will this inspire a new generation of Mileys to go out and run for office and change things?
Well, I think it's already doing that. I'm really astonished, and I'm really still astonished about what I'm watching on TV, when sometimes they're inviting university students who come from very poor backgrounds, even people who migrated from other bordering countries, and they start speaking about the ideas of Ludwig von Mises and the non-aggression principle and all this stuff on national TV, and 21-year-old boys speaking like that was unthinkable 5-10 years ago. If someone told me that that would happen in my country, I would laugh at them, and believe they were crazy. So I think that a lot of people, even if it's not the 7 million that voted for him, there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who have read, or at least an article or an essay or a book by an Austrian economist, by a libertarian uh, theorist, by anyone exposing the ideas of liberty. And I think that's priceless, because there is going to be a base, like a minimum
Yeah,
threshold of libertarians in Argentina.
that's great. Is he doing well among college students?
Well, as the educational level moves higher, he has less support. So as more educated the voter, he's less supported. Um,
Which, yeah,
Most of
which
his support is a middle education level. So I
so
mean second,
so
not university.
and as we've talked about, in numerous shows, the college professors in Argentina are absolutely positively horrible, aren't they?
Yes. They're very statist. They're very. I mean, I went to school just it was like 10 years now, so I remember having some heated discussions with people who wouldn't conceive like a private social security system instead of a nationalized one, or even proposing libertarian point of view would be ridiculed by the professor at at the class. So yes, and not only the professors but the students. There is a lot of politics going on in public universities. So students also manage some of the budget of the university. So there is a lot of interest that that collide there. So yes, all the student movement is usually um, more statist friendly, state friendly,
Yeah.
but Milei's appearance have also yes promoted the appearance of new groups that are proposing different ideas and more libertarian ones.
Yeah, this is very interesting. What do you think else Malay is doing very well? I mean, you ran for office. What is Malay doing, for example, that you weren't doing, or that even Espert wasn't doing?
Well, I think first he has addressed the main pain point of society right now, which is inflation. But I think that what is he doing really good is in his campaign is that he Milei has taken a role of moving the Overton window, so making policies that probably were unthinkable a couple of years ago now can be debated, can be accepted into the public debate. So Milei would say, "I want vouchers for schools. I promote school choice. I'd rather pay a student." And the student decide where they want to spend the money and what school spend the money. But then behind him comes their advisors that say, "Okay, we are looking forward a voucher system in the schooling area in the school department, but we know that that's not possible in the current state of public schooling because if the school buildings are in a terrible state because there is a lot of union influence in teachers at the primary level, at the secondary level. So we are looking forward to turn this into a voucher system, but first we need to address infrastructure issues. We may provide more freedom for teachers and for schools to decide the contents they provide to the kids, the curriculum, but we are not ready for the voucher system.
Yeah,
Same when he says about, so he proposes the radical, ideal, his perfect worldview, and then the advisor puts the plan down to earth and explains what is possible and what is doable short term. So I think that way of communicating it's great because people would usually make focus on the big announcement made by Milei, but then all the political wonks and the media and the more informed people can understand what Milei is proposing uh, for the short term and for immediate implementation.
definitely. So, you know, the this is a so. What about his communication? You know, he certainly has a look. He's got a girlfriend who's an actress, and she's probably giving him some ideas on how to put out his image. It seems like he's definitely doing some things there that other politicians haven't done.
So yes, I'd say one of his main successes in this campaign was that he ran an organic campaign, like while he created some online content for social media. Most of the content created was created by its fans, by its followers, that would pick a segment of a TV show, of a TV interview, would edit it and upload it to TikTok, to Twitter, to whatever social media, and that's why he got a lot of support among youth people. Like if only youth voted, that he would have gotten 50%, 45% in the primaries. So he has a really successful online communications campaign. He has shown himself as well, going to cities and towns and meeting with people, walking with the people with the streets. So he has made a really effective campaign. Of course, he has a populist touch in his campaign and in his speeches, which also made it connect with people, because he was the one who came and said to the people, uh, let's stop fighting between each other, among each other, and let's fight the political caste, this political system that had exploited us and that had impoverished us in the last 20 years. So he has generated and connected emotionally with the voter. He has um, he has created a relationship of affection and love with the medium voter, which hasn't been seen in Argentina since the emergence of Perón.
Yep. Merchants are I'm curious. What type of alternative education, alternative schooling is happening down there? Is there a large unschooling movement as well, or is it easy to take your kids out of the system, or are they pretty much in it and you can't get them out?
Not really. I haven't been following this topic so closely over the last years. I know there are some Montessori schools here. I know there are some private, some startups that are providing like a private curriculums in order for homeschooling or for
Yep.
complementary schooling. But it's not a really large movement. It's a fringe movement. They have no presence in media. It's not one of the topics usually discussed in Argentina. The discussion in education comes more about the quality and the state of the public system than homeschooling, unschooling, or any alternative, or really, I'd say, educational alternatives.
Certainly. There was that talk about Milei getting involved in. I know Juan Galt had that talk about Milei possibly been involved in some cryptocurrency scams. Do you think there's any truth to that, or do you think maybe he was just a, I don't know,
Well,
art?
it happened. It
Yeah,
happened. In
yeah,
December 2021, he uploaded a video promoting uh, uh, what was like a financial advisory firm or financial management firm called CoinX that promised some fixed yield of a 7% monthly. So it he uploaded that video to his Instagram account, and then he even defended it. He said they have a system of investing that would return that amount. Um, I don't know. I don't think that he was aware it was a Ponzi scheme, but I think it was really poor due diligence from his part. This happened
yes,
in a city in Rosario, which is in Santa Fe province, and it is said that one of uh, the main members of the party in Rosario uh, put Milei in contact with these people. So this is a real dark spot in his
yeah,
history.
yeah, and it could just be honest error, but you also got to be careful with the kind of company you keep, especially in your position. What is the culture of the uh, you know the Avanza Libertad like? I mean, is what's if you've been involved with the party? I mean, is it a It seems like it's a functional political party that at least is focused on winning. It's not very old, but what do you think they're doing that works as opposed to other libertarian parties, which are just around the world that are just spinning their wheels and going sideways?
Well, I'm not involved with the party, so I'm not knowledgeable about what's the internal ethos or the internal way of working. Um, what I can tell you is that from what I read on Twitter on the news, that there are teams working on. Like Milei was really surprised by these results, so they started working full throttle now, planning, making starting to analyze the situation and making up the plans and announcements they're gonna make. But um, I'd say it's a very diverse membership support of the support yes, membership of the party. Supporters are really diverse. It comes from old school libertarians to uh, right wing Trump lovers, communist haters, people that define themselves only by being anti-communist but not being pro anything. So it's a very diverse fauna that you can find in the party.
Yeah. How do you think he compares, say, to maybe Maria Corina Machado, or is anybody else around South in the Spanish-speaking world that's like him?
No, I don't think so. A person running for political office in the Spanish speaking world like Milei that has
Yeah,
this deep knowledge on Austrian economics and libertarian principles? No, I don't think so. Maria Corina Machado is I think she has some classical liberal roots, but in the end she's a traditional politician. I'd say he's more similar to Ron Paul, if you want to compare him
yes.
with a politician. Uh, he's no Ron Paul, but I mean, I can't believe we
Well,
have in
yeah,
Argentina someone similar as him.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. He's no Ron Paul. He actually has a shot at winning the presidency. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just, I was thinking of some of the other. I mean, I don't think he really compares to Trump, but I don't know where you compare him. As I said to one person, it sounds like he's using Peronist methods to achieve libertarian ends.
Well, yes, he is a populist, and I think he's following the Rothbard right wing program for libertarians. I think that was the article is called. If you read that article, you'll find
Yeah.
step by point. It's almost what Millet is doing, provoking people in order to hate the state, see the government as their enemy. I think it's a step by step guidebook. He's using it as like a stat.
Yes. Unfortunately, politics seems to be more a process of looking for villains than looking for solutions. Do you think this might? How do you think this might? If Milei is elected, how do you think it might impact the rest of South America? I mean, do you think it'll be hopefully maybe a setback for socialism that might have? I've said, I don't know if this is necessarily hyperbolic, but I've said this might be the most important election in the history of the world.
Well, I'm pretty sure this is the most important election in the history of Argentina. I don't know about the world, but probably I will have to agree with you. Or at least for us libertarians, um, people that defend the ideas of liberty. So I don't know what influence it can have. I think that Milei has spoken that he wants to leave Mercosur, which is the a union alliance. I think that it's called in English, where instead of being a free market area, countries agree to charge a tariff to products coming from outside the union, the customs area. I wanted to say a customs area, a common customs area. So, um, in that sense, if Milei does that, he will definitely shake the trade scenario in Latin America and how countries trade between each other, because it has existed this Mercosur cartel with Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina, and now Venezuela. And I think that if he does a good government, he will definitely inspire. He may inspire people in other countries that are going through um, a process of distrusting the government. that don't see the government as someone who can solve them a problem, but it creates a problem.
Yeah. One thing I've read is that the Spanish colonies became very different from the English colonies because they still largely had a legacy of something like a more modern form of feudalism, where everybody was just used to everything just coming down from the king, and everything is ruled, going down from the king. Do you think maybe we'll see a change in that culture, and maybe it'll become something more, where it is more of a bottom up? Because I've heard, for example, that a local government in America has more power than a local government in Argentina.
Hmm. Well, a lot of people say that Argentina's problem is a cultural problem, that we
Yeah,
have lost the culture of hard work, the culture of saving money. But personally, I think it's more of a question of incentives. So, yes, we have lived 100 years under authoritarian regimes, governments that really didn't care about private property or property rights, governments that didn't care about free speech, about respecting other political rivals. They would kill among each other. So, all this environment, all this intervention in this breach of contracts that go on and on and on in a country, in some way it may influence people at and form them, shape them in a way that they see that the only way, first, they can't progress because of all this corruption, of all this interventionism going on, of power hungry people. So then they see that everyone who is in power steals money. Then they see that the only way of achieving something and reaching the first place of the line is jumping the line. So 100 years of this kind of policy have kind of defined Argentine culture in this way. I think that if Milei wins, can make the correct changes. It may start changing the trend, but it's a long time process. This can't take place in 10 or in 15 years. I think this takes a long time in order to change, and it does gradually. We can't expect everyone to be yeah, to change their ways of they have behaved the last decades, from overnight.
where do you think we go? You know, long term, do you think this might? What other? How much influence does a group like the Sao Paulo Forum and some other organizations have down there? I've heard, for example, that Hugo Chavez got his education from the Cuban communists, and are they infiltrating other areas too and trying to spread this disease around? I mean, they've already fully diseased Venezuela, but and they'd like to go elsewhere. So, what do you think about that?
Probably there is a network of connections, alliances, and funding, or channels to funnel money among left wing movements. I think that, and of course, Venezuela has been infiltrated by the Cuban G2 and the Cuban government, and it has started a relation of interdependence among each other. But I really think that people tend to overestimate this Sao Paulo Forum as a very powerful entity that is behind conspiracies and such and such. I think there is a left wing network of funding, of organization, of coordination in Latin America, as it always has been. It has been a very, and particularly South America, it has been a very fertile soil for communist ideas, for government interventionist ideas. So I think it's natural that it exists, but I don't see a crazy conspiration going on there that planning to overtake the continent. They already did it, so
Yeah,
they own this continent for decades and decades, whether it was in power or whether it was in violent clashes. So I don't tend to give that kind of institutions such a relevant
Yeah.
um, place.
Yeah, one good sign of hope, I think, why I'm more optimistic about South America is it's still a place where marriage is taken seriously and family is taken seriously. Is that stayed the same over the last 20 or 30 years, or do you think it's going to become more like America, where we have a 50% divorce rate and it's all just and families just really considered a joke here?
Well, I'd say culturally, Argentina is very liberal in the sense of there is not very traditionalist. I think I believe that there is a deceleration of the growth rate of the population, so the fertility rate has increased over the last few years. Sorry, and I don't know if I mean if you compare I think the U.S. still maybe this is a point of your perspective from abroad, but the interior of the United States, outside the large cities like San Francisco or New York or Los Angeles, it prevents that feeling of family-oriented activities and communities. So I think Argentina is a very modern, diverse society, very open, and it's very accepting of every lifestyle. I think that is one of the great advantages, or one of the big features I highlight about this country. I don't know if it is particularly oriented towards family or towards marriage. I'd say that Chile is a much more conservative country and probably much more oriented in that sense. Maybe Central American countries are more geared towards family. I see Argentine population much more um, or less subject to that kind of use.
Yeah, that's good to know. Do you have anything else to say before we go?
Um, Not really. I think we are here in Argentina facing and
Yeah,
witnessing something that, as you said, when we met, could be really huge for the country, for a country that was born with classical liberal ideas
yeah,
and lost them throughout its history. So I think every libertarian should be getting being interested in what's going on here these days. I think it's really exciting. It's really exciting to watch TV and listen to all these debates about shall we close our central bank or shall we keep it open. It's like living in a fairy tale,
yes,
listening to an economist speaking about how Milei is more of a Rothbardian and he's more of a Friedmanite. So it's kind of a surreal for a libertarian to be here right now. And as I was interested in Ron Paul's 2008, 2012 campaigns, presidential campaigns in the United States, and everyone was interested in them, I think everyone should be looking here if they want to see um, what is going on and important historical events for the worldwide
yeah.
libertarian movement.
This will be huge. Well, yeah. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Follow the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Please check out my Substack and check out my novel Escape from the Village. Thank you for coming on, Adam. And will you be at Latin American Bitcoin Conference by chance? That's in Buenos Aires.
I will be, yes. I think it's next November.
Yeah, that's
Will
in
you
November. So yeah,
will you be here?
I'm thinking about it. So yeah, so it sounds like it's a great event though. So thank you. So I'm Chris Baker, and we are out. Yeah.